Welcome to City Life. It's good to have you here with us. Today on the program we talk about self-esteem, the Christchurch Events Village, gardening with Rachel Vogan in fact, and Nick, Kyle and Ali Harper from Canterbury Celebration Theatre. But first on the program, Stephen from Age Concern Canterbury. Welcome to City Life.
Thank you, good morning.
So tell me, what is the main focus at the moment for Age Concern?
Well, at the moment we've just had to vacate our offices in Cashel Street, so I guess in the last week the focus has been on re-establishing our service, and that's currently operating out of a couple of hubs at private residences, and other staff are operating from their respective homes. But the focus has been very much on continuing service. And that has been a little bit problematic because we can access our phones, but people can't talk to us directly, so they have to leave a message and we get back in touch with them. But it's working. I believe it's working as well as it can under the circumstances.
Okay, what kind of services do you offer?
Gosh, we have community health. We have 3 community health nurses working in the field. We have a database of around about 800 what we call approved service providers, and they're handymen, tradesmen, gardeners, cleaners, and virtually anything you can imagine that you'd want done around your home. So older people can contact us and we can connect them up with a provider, and the client can have some confidence that that person's been vetted and referee checked, and they'll be well catered for. Okay,
and the community at the moment, what is your main focus with the older people in Christchurch?
I think one of the main focuses is clearly around community health and the work that the nurses are doing. I've always taken the view that the older people are a very resilient cohort, but I think the times that we've had over the last 10 months have stretched that resilience to the max. And so, yes, I think the community health would be the main focus.
Okay, how is the community of the older person, how are they coping?
Well, that's an interesting question when I get asked that from time to time, and I don't think there's one answer. I think you've got those who are very resilient and those who are very vulnerable, and all the mix in between. Okay,
so who is it for? Who's Age Concern for?
We're there for anyone aged 65 and over. Although we have a membership, people do not have to be members to receive our services. So we're there as a, if you like, a social agency to help provide support and advocacy for older people. Okay. And that advocacy can be on a one-to-one basis, and our nurses will accompany people if they need to, shall we say, go to work and income or wherever. Okay,
and have you found yourself busier lately?
Oh yes, you know, it has been incredibly busy, and particularly in that community health field, and also the home support services with the handymen and tradesmen, where people find they need a lot of work done around their homes, and that can be from immediate repairs to fixing locks to ensuring that doors can be secured and the likes.
Okay, let's look at some of the issues at the moment for the elderly people in Christchurch.
Well, issues. In my mind, social isolation is a huge issue. We have a couple of services that we seek to increase social connectedness, if I can put it that way. One of those services is an accredited visitor service. So we have over 100 volunteers who commit to at least 1 hour per week to visit a person who's perhaps socially isolated. We've also got minibuses that do outings. We've kind of put those on hold for a couple of weeks just to review where we're at given the relocation from the building. So I think to me social isolation is a big issue. Another issue of course is we're in the middle of winter now, and there's the issue around winter warmth, and that's more difficult this year with a lot of homes that have been damaged. Harder to keep warm, but it is very important that older people stay warm, and the desired temperature for where they're living is kind of 18 to 21 degrees. And that can be quite expensive of course, but in terms of health and well-being it's very important.
In regard to social isolation, what kind of things would you advise in that area?
Well, I think if people there's two ways here. So the person who's perhaps socially isolated, to encourage them to contact their neighbours or friends, just to make that connection, and perhaps for those who are neighbours or friends to remind them of the person that they are aware of who might be on their own, just to kind of keep that ongoing connection, because it's very easy, I think. I tend to liken it to like a bereavement. When someone passes away, all the friends and family will be around for a while, and then a couple of weeks later, people get back on with their lives. And I think when we think of some of the aftershocks and the likes, it would be nice just to connect in with neighbours, just to make sure that that person's okay.
So if we do have an older person in our community, we should check on them?
Yeah.
Be friendly?
Yeah, we'll certainly encourage that, yes, absolutely.
Okay, let's look at people in the eastern suburbs. How are they coping?
Well, it's a terrible situation. Again, I think you've got a range of responses. The package that the government's announced, I can understand the different views, that some will say that this is a great package, and some will find it very, very difficult, and they'll have different expectations. So again, there's no kind of one answer.
Okay, all right. And how can people help Age Concern?
Oh gosh, well our telephone number has remained the same, 3660 903. If anyone wants to perhaps volunteer their services, to ring and leave a message, and we will get back to them.
And also, if the older person wants to get in touch with you, they can call the same number?
Same number, and we will get back in touch with them. That telephone is being monitored constantly throughout the day, or virtually constantly throughout the day, by some of our volunteers, who in turn email the message to one of the staff who will respond. So it might sound a bit clumsy, but we're in difficult times, and it's working as well as it can. When
do you think you'll be back up and running as per normal, I suppose?
Well, our building in Cashel Street has coped pretty well with the earthquakes, but on engineering advice we've vacated it, and that by and large relates to the GNS, I don't know if it's predictions, but they have raised the awareness of increased seismic activity, and if there is another large aftershock, it could have an impact on the building. So we're waiting for a more comprehensive engineering report, and that will give us a way forward as to works that need to be done. And so it's not going to be a short time.
Right, okay, that number once more,
3660 903.
That's great. Stephen, thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you, you're welcome.
Now I'd like to welcome to the program Dr. Rod Carr from the University of Canterbury. Good to have you on the program.
Hi, Ken. Nice to be here.
Now tell me about the university. How's it going?
Well, the students are on break, so that gives them a bit of a rest. But the rest of the campus is being cleaned up, fixed up, tidied up, and we're looking forward to the second semester starting on the 11th of July.
Let's look at the way that the university has recovered after the quakes.
Right. Well, we think of it as having four really major components: our students, our staff, our facilities and our programs. In terms of our students, they've done a wonderful job in being very resilient through a pretty challenging first semester. This first semester started on the 21st of February, and of course on the 22nd all kinds of things happened. They worked through some of them being taught in tents, some of them online learning, some much more self-directed learning, but at the end of the day, the vast majority of our 15,500 students stuck it out on campus at the University of Canterbury in Christchurch and came through to the end of the semester, and I'm very proud of them. In terms of our staff, of course, they had to do amazing things, general staff as well as academic staff. We've had very little staff attrition, but our staff have been affected by the earthquake, as the whole city has been. And then on top of that, they've had to work from often home, unfamiliar circumstances, offering courses in a different structure. They've done a great job too. In terms of the buildings, we have about 240 different structural spaces on campus. After every major aftershock, we have to go through all of those spaces with a 5-step process for signing them off as being safe to re-access. So that takes time. After the February earthquake, we were shut for 3 weeks. After the June quake on the 13th, it took about 2.5 days of closed campus time to confirm all of the buildings where those that were safe were able able to be reoccupied.
Okay. How big is a big aftershock for the university to clear?
Yeah, it's a little bit difficult to pick a number, but it's something around a 5.5, and partly that depends where it is, what the consequences, how it's felt on campus. Largely, students and staff will self-evacuate a building. They don't hang around, wait to be told. But then clearly once that trigger has been reached, nobody's allowed back until we're satisfied it's safe.
Let's look at the resilience of the students and staff at the uni.
So we look at student numbers. We're about 1,100 domestic students down on what we would have forecast would have been our 2011 full headcount. That's 1,100 out of 15,500. Some of that is made up of students who have actually withdrawn completely from the university. That's less than 700 students. And some of that is made up of students who have suspended their studies for a semester, or alternatively we expected students to enrol and they didn't turn up. The students who have stayed with us have often relied on each other quite a lot, peer support. They've had a pretty challenging semester as well, but there hasn't been a great demand for formal counselling services, for instance. Have been pretty moderately used, and a lot of students are just happy now to have a bit of a break.
Let's look at the story in the paper. A lot of students are asking for aggregates in their exams. Is that something you were expecting?
Yes, well, we made a policy decision that said, whereas normally you had to have medical evidence to even apply for an aggregate assessment, we said, no, the earthquake's it. That's a justification for applying for an aggregate assessment. It's not a guarantee of a pass. It simply says, my personal circumstances are such that I think you should have a look at that while you consider whether the grades I've got fairly reflect on my ability to acquire this knowledge and show competency. So out of 15,500 students, we've had about 4,500 say, I think I'd like an aggregate assessment of my first semester's work. That means over 70% of students have not applied for an aggregate assessment. So the vast majority are happy to stand by the grades they've been attributed and the progress they've made during the first semester.
Okay, let's look at some other ways that the university is helping its students.
Right. So we have put in place additional counselling services for those who require them. We've provided some financial relief, modest, sure, for those who recognise that they've been working in different circumstances. In the beginning, we provided exchange opportunities for students who wished to study but not on site at the university campus. So about 250 students opted for an exchange either to Adelaide, to Oxford, or to one of the other New Zealand universities. So we did know there would be students for whom this was an opportunity to be somewhere else for a period of time, but we expect most of those students to be coming back to us at the beginning of the next semester.
Let's look at the initiatives that have come out of the university following the earthquake. For example, the UC Volunteer Army.
Right. So the Student Volunteer Army was self-generated from within the student body. It wasn't a university organised thing. It came about after the September quake. Then following that sort of a major activity, those who had organised the army began to want to sustain a more permanent volunteering culture, so they didn't just dissipate. They created an infrastructure with an ongoing series of activities, and of course when the February quake came they were able to gear up quite dramatically, which they did, particularly while the university was closed. So we just have to remember a number of our students weren't here for that intensive Student Volunteer Army because the university closed. We encouraged them to actually go home to take some weight off the city infrastructure. Often the volunteer army was those who stayed and those who were either living in Christchurch or had a good reason to be here. So about half the students appear to participate in the volunteer army. Other things that have come out of that, we've created an academic program in service learning. So out of the American natural disasters, they began to develop an intellectual understanding of how to organise and respond to community needs, volunteering and so forth. So there's quite a good academic literature around that. We've brought that together with an applied part of the program to create what we've called Christchurch 101, which is a 15.4 credit paper in service learning. We've started offering that for the second semester in the summer school, and we've had some pretty substantial interest in that program from American students wanting a study abroad experience in Christchurch, which is pretty exciting.
That is pretty exciting. Now, just finally, finally, what are the things that the university has learnt from the earthquakes?
Well, first of all, I think we've learnt we can be a lot more flexible and a lot more responsive than we've traditionally thought of ourselves as being. We've sort of traditionally believed that we would take our time to gradually make change and choices. The earthquakes proved that our staff can actually make very good choices very quickly when they have to. Secondly, I think we've come to understand that we can actually use our built infrastructure much more efficiently and effectively than we have. Whole lecture theatre blocks aren't available at the moment for timetabling, and yet we're able to timetable quite adequately. So that's been quite revealing. And I think the underlying resilience of both the student body and our staff has been revealed, but we have to recognise everybody's getting pretty tired, and we have got some people who are in very difficult personal circumstances.
All right, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thanks, Ed.
We'll be back after this break. Welcome back to City Life. Now, I'd like to welcome Fred here to talk about the potential adverse health impacts of wireless technology. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Now, first of all, let's talk about your background in technology.
My degrees are in electrical engineering, both from the States. My background has been in electrical power engineering. Throughout my career, I moved into computer engineering, IC design, as well as when I headed research and development and executive positions, I had wireless teams under me.
Okay, so what are some of the potential health hazards in regard to wireless technology?
The health hazards, if any, are unknown and questionable. However, the idea is that transmitting stations send their signals to the handsets through electromagnetic waves, and if the body is subjected to a great degree of electromagnetic waves in close proximity for extended periods of time, the question is how much of it might be harmful and how much of it might be safe, and that's a question primarily for medical scientists.
What is an extended period of time, though? Would it be being on your phone all the time?
So these are the areas that we don't know. It's a bit like saying how long might be appropriate for people to drive. By now we have more data and we can give more information to people. I think these are the areas that are very important for us to investigate and research and inform the public about. At the moment, there are no set rates, but it is recommended that the people use this wisely.
Okay, how do we use wireless technology wisely?
Most of the handsets are quite advanced. They have either speaker phones that could be used. Many of them are powerful enough, so we don't have to keep them very, very close to our ears in order to respond to the caller, and that's where most of the electromagnetic radiation that our body may be subjected to will be witnessed. There are hand-free kits that are quite powerful, either wired or wireless version, that can assist. And there are certain advances that are being made in terms of the technology itself that would mitigate any potential problem.
Okay, but it's not just cell phones. I guess laptops as well are wireless.
Absolutely. So if there were to be an issue in terms of health, it would not be restricted to cell phones. Certainly, as our homes become smarter and more modern, we have wireless routers at home, we have wireless mouse and keyboards, we have wireless, certainly garage door openers, most of us have that. We have smarter phones, whiteware and appliances that can communicate to a central hub. We have satellite dishes, we watch television, radio. There are a whole host of things, microwave ovens, certainly all of them.
Why are we so interested in wireless technology? Why do we need it?
Wireless technology has really liberated us from being grounded to a location. Whereas the communication simply consisted of maybe short periods of voice communication, right now has extended to data as well as video. We can have access to information almost anywhere at any time. It has really provided a social means to people. The deployment of a wireless system is much simpler and quicker than a landline. and a wired system.
Now, are you making advances to get rid of these hazards or these potential hazards?
As we step through these things, obviously every step is intended to mitigate any potential hazard that might be. The technology itself is much more robust. The signals do not need to be repeatedly sent back in order for the data to arrive as compared to the older phones that we used to have. The amount of power consumption has reduced substantially, although the phones these days offer many more gadgets, and this could be compensating some of that power that was gained. The systems seem to indicate that younger people have a tendency of texting, so that in itself then should prevent some of the parents from having to worry about the health of the children.
Yeah, okay. And do you think the progress towards wireless technology will slow down because of these potential health hazards?
I don't think so at all. I think the technology will move ahead. Obviously, it really needs to consider any potential health hazards that might be discovered and might be unanimously accepted as a problem, and maybe new standards and new guidelines will be set as a result of it. But this is an area that is improving. I have hardly seen anyone who says that they favor a wired version of whatever they have, unless the wireless version does not work or it's not safe enough. Safe enough in a sense, security. I'm not talking about the health aspect of it.
And do you safely, do you like to use wireless technology yourself?
We use it extensively, yes. I haven't had any concerns myself. Certainly, if I'm on the phone for a long period of time, it means that I am on a conference call, so I like to have my hands free. So therefore, I tend to use the speakerphone or a hands-free kit. It is a mobile office for me. I have taken vacations for the last 20 years or so, but it has always meant that my work has followed me as well.
Okay. And finally, if people are concerned about things like wireless technology, what sort of ways can they get around this?
They need to keep themselves informed, and they need to make a decision based on the information they received. If they like to err on the cautious side, they can certainly do so until we know for fact whether certain items are a cause for concern or not. I do think that most of us use cell phones at a time and a place that is safe for us to use. And therefore, it provides us an opportunity to maintain the cell phone at a fairly reasonable distance. The power and the electromagnetic wave drops fairly quickly as the phone is separated from the body.
Okay, I've just got to ask very briefly, finally, having your cell phone beside your bed when you sleep, is that harmful? Because I always do that as an alarm clock. I do it as well. Okay. If I felt that it were harmful, I wouldn't do this. Okay. However, if you don't have a need and you do have another alarm clock and you don't want to become part of the statistics in the future, then you might opt otherwise. Right. But I do have it, albeit at about a meter of a distance. All right. Yeah. Fred, thank you so much for coming on the program. My pleasure. We'll be back after this break. Welcome back to City Live, and I'd like to welcome back to the program Rachel Vogan. Good to have you here.
Nice to see you.
It's nice to have you in the lounge this time.
Oh, I love the lounge. I love the lounge.
What do you love most about the lounge? I
love the lounge that I can come in here and I can make a difference.
You can make a difference. Yeah. And are you making a difference today?
Well, hopefully.
Really? Yeah. Why do you keep looking back there? I just don't get it. What's wrong with that?
Well, when I rocked in this morning, it's been a couple of weeks since I've seen you, I was surprised to see that we had an anthurium here in the corner that looks like it is in need of some TLC.
Well, the thing is, I didn't even know that was a real plant. So when you say it needs water, I'm like, but it's not a real plant.
No. Often plastic plants don't wilt. That's really a good.
But I haven't noticed. I'm so embarrassed.
So it's actually fantastic. We can actually fix this problem.
Hey, that's my water bottle.
with this. So this needs.
All right.
We won't do it because it'll actually make a mess over your beautiful bookcase. Yeah. But when I finish this session, we'll get up and we will put a wee saucer under it and give it a water.
That's been in here since the beginning of the program, which is well, it's the end of the 9th week now, so 10 weeks.
Well, they're
10
actually,
weeks.
as you can see, they don't need a lot of water, but when plants indicate with their leaves and they start sort of their leaves, rather than sitting up, sit down, it means they need a drink. At the end of the day, generally I need a drink. Yeah. This plant is now needing a drink.
I just thought it was a beautiful fake lily. Doesn't it?
Yes, no, it's good that we have some real things in your lounge. Yeah. And
I'm real.
You are, you're great. And we're going to keep an eye on this anthurium.
All right, I'll try to start looking after it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I see you've brought some strawberries in. I didn't know it was even strawberry season, but...
Yeah, it's interesting. Mother Nature's she's a crazy old girl.
Isn't she?
Decides that basically if you want the rewards, you need to do the right things at the right time. And winter is the key time for actually preparing your strawberry beds for strawberry plants.
Wow.
Raspberries, blackberries, and it's time to plant your garlic. So the easiest way to actually plant strawberries is to just find a really nice sunny position or grow them in a pot like I have here. These are actually sitting in my glass house, and we can see that because we've had quite a warm autumn, we've got a few flowers and we've even got a few berries.
Wow.
So what I do to keep this growing well is I feed it with strawberry fertiliser. Now that seems pretty obvious, but often we have a lot of different types of fertiliser, but strawberries need strawberry fertiliser. So you'll find this at all the garden centres, doesn't matter where you go, whether it's a hardware type garden shop or whether it's a garden centre. Feed them with strawberry food. And if you want to make some new wee plants, there's actually quite a few little what we call plantlets or runners that I could actually dig this up and come up with 10 or so plants from this and to plant them out to get 10 new plants. So to give you an idea of what they might look like, I've just got one in my little...
So it's a strawberry plant?
This is here.
So they don't start as seeds?
They could, but they just take too long. So what we do is, this looks like one plant in the garden, but we just separate them out, just carefully, and without wanting to get too much soil all over your lovely lounge.
It is lovely.
So we've made one plant now into two.
Okay.
And then we could just plant these about this far apart in a pot or in the garden. So it's actually quite straightforward. You just need to make sure they're like me. They need full sun, plenty of food, water.
Right.
Water.
That's the key for the day.
And they can be grown in pots, and they can be grown in pots and containers. Hanging baskets are perfect, particularly if you like, drinking something like champagne. You can have your strawberries ripening around you, and as you sit outside with the girls, you can just drop one into your glass.
That sounds ideal. It sounds like something I'd like to do.
I think that would work for you.
Yeah, I think so as well. We could have them growing in here.
We could.
Now, these strawberries, when did you plant these? I mean, how long has this taken to get
These are last summer's strawberries. So what's happened is that because our autumn's actually been quite mild, and we've had a few weeks we haven't had a lot of cold weather, they've actually started to regrow. And these are actually in my glass house, so that's why I've managed to get a few fruit. I'm a gardener, but I'm not like superwoman or anything. These have, just because they've had a warm environment, are still growing.
Okay.
But outside of my garden, they look like this. The ones I've they're from outside.
So it's better to plant them in a glass house?
No, they're very, very hardy. I just had mine in the glass house because that's where it was. Yeah. And so I thought, I'm doing strawberries today, I'll take that in. I looked this is one I prepared earlier.
Yeah, it does look like that.
But it was actually just because it's come away. But outside, they're just going to look like quite dormant. They'll look like this. You just pull off the old dead leaves and plant them about this far apart in rows, slightly raised, so then the strawberries can hang down over the side. Maybe put some straw around them to keep the actual berries off the soil so they're nice and clean. And you'll need to, in the summer, think about keeping the birds off them because the birds love them.
They do, don't they?
My dogs eat them.
Really? Is it dangerous for dogs?
Well, it is if I catch them.
Now, I mean, this plant here, it's given it away that these are blackberries.
Yes.
I don't see any thorns.
No, normally blackberries are really, really thorny and good spotting.
Thank you.
You've got horticultural prairies.
Haven't I?
Yeah.
Thanks to my mum.
Oh, good. Oh, mum. Yeah, this is ideal for people who don't like having lovely, fresh blackberries but don't like the thorns. And good for if you've got children around because if they're wanting to harvest the berries, they're not going to get little prickles on their fingers. So this is a nice one to be able to plant. This can grow up on a fence and you can have the strawberries planted below. The other tall sort of things to plant would be raspberries, and these have got little thorns up and down their stems. Yeah. But you can divide these easily this time of year as well. So winter is the time to be thinking about berries.
All right.
If you forget about doing them over the next sort of month or so, you can plant them basically up until the middle of spring.
Okay.
But if you've got time now, get them prepared and get a few in, so you've got plenty for an early crop.
Excellent. And just really, really finely, garlic.
Yeah, now is the time to plant garlic as well.
Okay.
So we've got, these are the cloves that you buy in the garden centre or the supermarket.
Yep.
You might find if you try to plant cloves that you buy from the garden, actually the supermarket, they won't grow because they've actually, if it's been imported from China, it's probably been treated with something to stop it from sprouting.
Oh.
So you need to divide up the little cloves. This is the cloves off the bulb, and you plant these about this deep now in rows, and they can grow in containers. Cool. But I can go into this a little bit more in a couple of weeks.
Awesome. All right, Rachel, thank you so much for coming to the program. Good to see you next time.
Good to see you.
Cheryl joins me from House of Travel to talk about a fabulous river cruise expedition for 2012. Morning, Cheryl.
Good morning, Jeff. I thought we'd do river cruising again because it's such a popular purchase at the moment, and on Avalon particularly, because we've got a fully escorted group departure for next year, House of Travel.
So we're looking a year ahead.
We are looking a year ahead, and just interestingly, the cruise is already full apart from our group departure for 2012, and it's September the 2nd, so more than a year ahead, these cruises are filling up.
Now, tell me, how much is this deal worth?
Right, you go from Christchurch on Singapore Airlines,
yes.
2 nights accommodation in Singapore,
correct.
On into Europe, airport transfers to the cruise, and then you've got 15 days on magnificent Europe, which goes from Budapest to Amsterdam,
right.
And that leads in at 9,999. And you can upgrade cabins from that. You can go on one of these beautiful new suite cabins, and you can also upgrade your airfares if you want.
Right. Now, you've got some evenings to sell this to customers, haven't you?
Yes, we have. It's not just for selling this
right.
group tour. Also, we have we're having an evening on Avalon on all cruises, on all departures.
Yes.
12th and the 17th of July. These are at Chateau on the Park,
right.
from 6 to 7.
So 12th and the
17th of July.
17th of July at the Chateau.
Yes, and you can come along and talk to the experts and hear about all the different options for next year.
Right. Now, tell me, this is a 15-day escorted package. What's so special about river cruising?
River cruising is the new way to cruise. It's you don't ever get rough seas, no swells on the river, so a lot of people like it for that. But it's also very relaxing. We talked about it one other day about the freedom of river cruising.
Yes, I remember that.
Because you unpack, get on, and you get off at the end. There's no getting up early in the morning and having to meet a coach departure. And also you arrive in the main areas, the towns and the cities, you get straight off and walk into the city. No travelling in and out.
That sounds fabulous. Now look, we've got some pictures to have a look at.
Yes, we have.
Let's go through them and we'll talk about what's special and about these particular destinations on this particular journey from Budapest to Amsterdam.
Lovely.
So that's the route.
We start with the map, and that's the way that the cruise goes from Budapest to Amsterdam, and all the different little towns that you go in between.
So we're going through Slovakia now.
That's Budapest there.
That
so
is
you
Budapest.
start at Budapest and you you're heading towards Amsterdam.
Anything special in particular in Budapest to
Well, it's just a beautiful, the old and the new city. It's a beautiful city to walk around. You get a walking tour that's included
yes.
when you first get there, and then you've got the rest of the day to do what you want.
And there is one of the river boats that you're on.
Yes.
Now, this looks interesting.
That's coming into Dürnstein in Austria, as you're still heading towards Amsterdam.
So it's a medieval...
They're all old towns. They were working towns on the river, and so you can, which is why you come in so close to the town.
Right. So I can just imagine pulling in beside there and just walking up the main street.
Walking up the main street, you can live like a local. You can go back on the boat to have your lunch, or you can stay in town.
Now this looks very...
Yes, that's Nuremberg in Germany. Very famous historical town.
Right, it's famous for a notorious reason.
It is.
But obviously it's a very beautiful city as well.
Very beautiful old city. And still in Germany, this is Miltenberg, another lovely stop on the river, gorgeous old bridge. Every little place you go to, or big place for a lot of them, you think you're not going to see anything more beautiful till you get to the next one.
And it's a surprise around the river bend every time.
It is.
Now this is the boat.
This is the Avalon Panorama. Now, the new ship that we've got for our trip next year is the Vista, but it's so new it hasn't been launched yet.
Okay.
So this is a sister ship. So what you see here is exactly what you're going to get on the Vista.
Obviously shallow, low. Oh, now the cabin. Oh, that looks nice.
So that's a panorama suite. Those doors, windows, open right out, and so you can walk right out and stand there, and you've got a big open cabin, like a whole balcony, really.
Exactly.
You can't have big balconies on these ships, as you can see, because you go through the locks, so there's very little room to manoeuvre.
Right, and that would be the same type of cabin, or is that
that's one down. They're all beautiful. You could go in whatever cabin and you'd be happy.
Sure you would.
You can upgrade to whatever cabin you like. This is the end of the trip and you're in Amsterdam, which is, you can tell by the buildings straight away where you are.
So you've basically gone right through the middle of Europe and you're actually sitting in this beautiful city.
You are.
Right. Now, of course, tell us again about those evenings and that package deal again.
Yes, so the 12th and the 17th, one's a Tuesday, one's a Wednesday.
Right.
So you can come along and hear all about them. Of course, in the meantime, you can go into any house of travel and talk to any of the consultants about it.
Right.
There's a $500 deposit that you need to put down to hold a cabin on this particular
that's important.
departure.
And then, again, how much is that package and what does it involve?
So it starts at $9,999.
Right.
It's not that easy to say,
It
is it?
isn't, no.
And that gives you your airfares in economy class on Singapore Airlines, your 2-night stopover, your 15-day cruise from Budapest to Amsterdam. And, of course, if you want to stay on afterwards, we can arrange that. You don't have to come straight home.
Thank you, Cheryl. So, therefore, for a wonderful 15-day escorted package from Budapest to Amsterdam, go to one of your houses of travel in Christchurch. There are 10 of them, and I'm sure they'll look after you.
Welcome back to City Life. Now, earlier in the week was Self-Esteem Awareness Day, so we've brought on Martz to tell us all about it. Now, you're not one of the people behind the day, but you do speak a lot about self-esteem in business.
Yes, I do. My main topic is how to be obscenely rich but hold your life together. And holding your life together is a lot built around self-esteem.
Now, I know you were speaking with the person that was running Self-Esteem Awareness Day. How did it go?
Yeah, Janice Davies, based in Auckland. She calls herself Janice, the lady with nice in her name, which is quite nice. Yeah. Pun intended. And she was saying it was a riot. It was really good. Went down really, really well.
What did they do as part of it?
Well, the day is just around awareness, and so they're really trying to get into the youth. They're trying to get it organised to start it in the very young. But actually, everybody needs a good boost of self-esteem as they go.
What does self-esteem look like?
Well, it's intangible, so it doesn't look like anything, but it's got two parts. And one is around your sense of self-worth, so it's as individual as your fingerprints, and then it's also around your sense of self-ability. So it's that little voice in your head, you know. Henry Ford summed it up beautifully. Whether you think you can, whether you think you can't, you're right. That's your self-esteem. And so we've got to build on it. We've got to build on it ourselves, and we've got to build on it in our youth and our families and our friends.
Okay,
and our work colleagues.
How do we do that?
Well, I would argue there's two parts to it. One would be the language we use. For example, in our own office and in my own family, I was a solid dad for 10 years, and we forbade the word can't, because can't is a negative word. So I think it's around putting positives, overlaying negatives with positives, so always the positive. So we forbade the word can't. And so when it came time to do the dishes, the boys would say, I can't do the dishes, I've got my homework to do. And I'd say, we don't allow the word can't. And so they went and did the dishes, typically, until they learnt the word won't. But never mind. Never mind.
Did you say that won't is not said in the
Well, you sort of have to allow the word won't. But that can't thing, they're pretty bright boys, actually. It's around that language. And, you know, that old adage that the pen is mightier than the sword, I would argue the word is mightier than the pen. Because you can cut someone down just in a heartbeat. You know, oh, you're useless, oh, you're hopeless, oh, instead of building them up. That's all it takes. And so that day is around focusing on building people up.
What feeds or depletes our self-esteem?
Well, I think it's everyday life. And let's face it, living in Christchurch at the moment, there's a bit of depleting going on. So this Awareness Day went down very well here in Christchurch. And I think it's around staying focused on the positive. You know, we use words like, we'll go home for a strong end, not a weekend. And it's just a play on the word, but it's always affirming positive, 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 trying to get away from the negative. And it's also around the body language, you know, the way people sit. I mean, if you sit there with your arms crossed, you're not exactly inviting the love. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention to how you were sitting. Sorry about that. It sounds really, really basic, but it's actually quite hard. You've actually got to be quite concerted and quite regular with it.
Okay. How does our self-esteem drive what we ultimately become?
Well, I would argue that our thoughts become our words become our actions, and our actions become our being. Well, it all starts back with thoughts. Well, even a step back from that is our beliefs. And so I think our beliefs and our self-esteem are intrinsically linked. And so whatever they form, they're the nucleus, everything builds on top of that. So if you start off with a rubbishy start, it's not looking great for the long haul.
How can you make yourself more positive or have a better self-esteem?
Well, my dear old mum, my late mother, said, "Son, you are what you eat. Avoid fruits and nuts." I didn't listen. However, my dad said, "You are who you hang out with."
Right.
And he was a wise old sage. And I remember when I was 16, 17, I was hanging out with a bad crowd. And he said, "Son, you're going to have to leave those mates behind. You are who you hang out with." And so I walked away from my entire friendship base at that time. I miss those 3 guys. But the thing is, you are who you hang out with. And so if you're hanging out with someone who looks like they've been weaned off mother's breasts and onto lemons, you know, they're a bit sour, don't hang out with them. Change your crowd. And this is where, with our youth, sorry if I go on about youth a lot, but I'm really quite passionate about getting the youth on board. If they're hanging out with a bad crowd, we've got to try and show them. Of course, you can't walk up and say, "Hey, don't hang out with them," because they'll just do it to spite you, probably. But yeah, it's about getting back to some good old-fashioned values, which we are finding in Christchurch at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. How important is self-esteem to what we, eventually become, achieving what we want to do?
Well, I would argue it's everything. I would argue it's ultimately everything. I work with a lot of very interesting business people, and the ones who really get to where they want to go have got the positive self-esteem. Some of them have got there just through sheer hard work, and it's always hard work, but just through sheer hard work. But their core is flawed, and so they self-sabotage, and things go wrong, and the blame factor comes out, and all these sorts of interesting things. So I believe that ultimately, have a good self-esteem, you'll actually get where you want to go with the right people, hanging out with the right people.
And finally, the things that we need to do, just some words that we need to think of to get a good self-esteem?
Well, first of all, it's a really good website that was in the press release from Janice Davies. It's selfesteemday.com or internationalselfesteem.com. There's some really good webinars on there, and so she gives fantastic tips on the words. But I would just say, listen to that voice in your head. If it's going negative, no, whatever, slash and burn it and just turn it around. I can.
All right. Martz, thank you so much for coming on the programme.
Most welcome. Thank you.
Finally on the programme, now Canterbury Celebration Theatre kicks off this Sunday with Nick Kyle's show, and Ali Harper is joining him. Good to have you both on the programme.
Good to be here.
Now tell me, what is your show about?
Well, it's kind of a loose story about my sort of journey over the last 6 years of leaving school, not knowing what I was going to do, NASDA, then suddenly Court Theatre, meeting Ali there, and then up to today, and the sort of where I've come after the earthquake and everything like that.
So did you actually go to NASDA?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, straight out of school. I wasn't going to.
No, you were such a natural talent. You remember him when he was a young boy doing those showbiz shows? I certainly do.
I wasn't around then. I was up in Wellington. But yes, it's amazing how he can cram his life in 1 hour, because there's a lot to tell.
Really?
I tell you.
So how do you get woven into the story? Is that when he meets you? Is this the Ali Harper that comes along and he meets you?
Right.
Yeah,
really?
Yeah, sort of just link it in with when we Yeah, because the first thing I ever did with Ali was "I Love You, You're Perfect Now, Change."
Yeah.
And so yeah,
that was good. That was very good.
Yeah, nice
so
little four-hander.
Yeah. So it is actually Nick and Ali performing. It's not they're not characters.
No, yeah, it is. It is just ourselves.
It's us.
Yeah, so it's sort of me for a little bit, and then I introduce Ali in a humorous.
Yeah, because cabaret is an interesting art form. I've studied a bit in New York about cabaret, because in New York they have amazing clubs, you know, where you go in and you have your food and your drink and you do a cabaret show for an hour, and it's just an amazing sort of art form. And that someone said to me, in a cabaret, you imagine that you are talking in your living room. That's how intimate it should be. You should be completely yourself. And so it's interesting because you've always hidden behind a character.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a very new thing for me. Not only doing cabaret as a form, but trying to write a show about yourself and be subjective about are people going to find this interesting?
Yeah.
Just because I think it's a funny story, but.
Yeah.
Is it actually something that people want to see on stage? How do I link it to songs that one, I know, and two, people are going to want to hear and that suit the mood? And so it's been really good, but it's been great having Luke DeSoma's arranged all the music for it.
Oh, great.
And I've got a great band. It's three-piece. I've got Richie Pickard, who plays with the CSO on bass, Tim Sellers, who's an ex-Christ College boy, who played the drums with me for Cabaret, and Max Tocker on piano, who's I've worked with a few times, yeah.
What a team you've got there.
Yeah, so it's great.
So how did it start? Did Ben McDonald from Canterbury Celebration Theatre come to you and say, look, I've got a spot in the marquee, do you want to fill it?
It was actually kind of like sheer luck that I even found out about it, because I was doing The Importance of Being Earnest, and David Sheard was in talks with Ben about doing his show, Sweet Phoebe, in the tent. And I was desperate to do something, to get some money, to get on stage again, and so David said, well, why don't you get in touch with Ben and see if you can do something? And then Ben said, have you got any ideas? And I just on the spot just said, well, I could do like a cabaret show.
That's
and
brilliant.
Then, yeah.
And so when Nick came to you with this idea, what was your first sort of reaction, your thoughts?
Oh, do I have to?
Because he would have been pregnant. Were you pregnant still at that time?
I love Nick.
Yeah.
He's wonderful. He's so talented. So, of course, I jumped to it. Yes, I was pregnant. I thought, oh, my goodness, I'll have had a baby 11 weeks when I do the show with Nick. And I thought, could I do it? And I thought, what a wonderful way to get back on, you know, treating the board. So, you know,
exactly.
It's lovely.
Because you have a little toddler as well.
Yes, I have an 18-month-old, Thomas, and now the 11-week-old Archie, and an 11-year-old daughter. So I have the extreme, you know, arguing with her this morning, have you brushed your teeth, have you turned off your lights? And then also, you know, got the little babies.
Yeah, wow, what a
busy life.
So that's your life during the days.
Yes.
With babies and rehearsing, I suppose, as well.
It's great.
And you, what are you up to? You still doing some things for Medbury?
Yeah, I coach football, take some little boys for football twice a week, which is fun to get out in some fresh air, because I play a bit of football myself, which is good. But
That's good.
No,
excellent. So, some of the songs that are going to be performed in the show?
It's a mixture of some things from shows that people may know. It's a lot of Stephen Sondheim stuff, because I've done a lot of Sondheim shows. There's a bit of Michael Bublé.
Excellent.
A wee Michael Bublé.
For the ladies.
A bit of Josh Groban.
Cool.
To cap the evening off.
Yeah.
It's an eclectic mix, but you know, hopefully it all suits the mood well.
Fun. Okay. Yeah. What else have you got coming up after Celebration Theatre?
Straight after this show, I have a couple of weeks off, and then I'm off to Auckland to do The Wizard of Oz.
Oh.
I've just been cast as the Tin Man in that.
I was going to ask, are you the Tin Man?
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
So
Who's
great.
That for?
Jesse Peach
is
doing it. Yeah, so we're doing it in the
Excellent.
Civic. There's apparently, I've heard rumours, 11 live animals and...
Wow.
Okay. Is this the second show you've done with him?
Third. This will be the third. Yeah, I did Blood Brothers straight out of Asda,
right. Yep.
then Sweeney Todd last year, and now this.
And what about you, Ali? What's coming up for you?
Well, of course, next Thursday is the Carry On Court concert at the Aurora Centre, so raising money for the Court Theatre, so we're both doing that.
Great. We had Ross Gumby on the programme yesterday talking about it. Still tickets available, so call the Court Theatre.
Yeah, so that'll be wonderful. George Henry's coming down for it, so it's going to be delicious, you know, going through some of the old musical theatre songs that we've all done.
That will be fun.
And then I'm doing a one-woman cabaret show at the West Melton Estate Winery next Sunday.
I also read about that as well.
Yeah.
Fun. So where can we get tickets for that one?
Ring up West Melton Estate Winery.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all online.
Excellent. All right, we have some double passes to give away to Nick and Ali's show for this Sunday. Actually, what are the other performance dates for your show?
So it's the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 9th and 10th.
Okay,
and the 9th is at 6, it's an early show.
All right, and we can go online to canterburycelebrationtheatre.co.nz to book there. Or we do have some double passes to give away. You can email me, canetta@ctv.co.nz, or you can give us a call, 3777 033, and we'll pop you on the draw. Thank you so much for both coming on the programme, and good luck for the season. Looking forward to having that warm, that heated marquee in Hagley Park. Okay, that is City Life for today. You can get in touch with me, canetta@ctv.co.nz. You can call us 3777 033, or you can write to us, PO Box 1100 Christchurch. Thanks for watching, have a good weekend, and I'll see you on Monday.